welcome. Today's guest is a wife, mother, advocate, teacher, mentor, multiple best-selling author, member of the National Academy of Best-Selling Authors, and recipient of 2 Quilly Awards, who has been featured on ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox News, and more. Passionate about the well-being of children and their families, she has over 20 years experience in the educational field as a special education teacher, behavioral specialist, early interventionist, autism analyst, and more. And she has decades of personal life experience as a parent and step-parent of a child with significant behavioral issues. She speaks globally at conferences for teachers, school administrators, and organizations. And through her books, programs, speaking engagements, and mentorship services, she helps parents, grandparents, and caregivers give their children the help they need to be the best that they can be. Welcome to the show, Dr. Teri Rouse. Welcome, Dr. Teri.
Well,
so great to have you here today.
Well, thank you so much, Ellie. I'm so excited to be here with you. I appreciate being here.
I appreciate the work that you're doing in the world. It is so important, so needed. So how did you get to where you are today? You have some incredible credentials and experience. How did you get there?
Wow. Well, I started out as a teacher. I've been teaching since I was in probably elementary school, something. Actually, I went away to college thinking that I was going to be a park ranger. Smokey Bear and I were like this. And so
how'd you get from Smokey Bear to education?
Well, that's a funny story. No, actually,
that's not preventing forest fires.
No, it's not. So actually, what happened is I went to college and I said, I want to teach environmental sciences. And they said, well, if you want to teach, then you have to get your teaching certificate.
Yep.
And so I ended up getting my teaching certificate, and the rest was history. I stepped into a classroom, and I never stepped out. In some capacity, I was always in a classroom.
Yeah.
And
so why was teaching important to you? Why did you feel that initial call to teach environmental sciences? Well,
I loved being outside, and it was just, I was the tomboy of the kids. I could climb a tree faster than any kid in the neighborhood. But really, I loved being with other people. I loved exploring. I loved discovering. And then when I stepped into the classroom, what happened is I found that I loved working with the kids, the children, that education, learning didn't come easily to them because it didn't come easily to me. Mm-hmm. So
so you saw yourself.
I did.
In them.
I did.
Yeah.
I absolutely did.
Yeah.
And this was just, this is years before I got into the special education and emotional, behavioral, and autism areas. But it was super important for me to let these children know that they could learn, and that and when they did learn and the light bulb went off, it was just thrilling, just absolutely thrilling.
So that you recognized yourself in them.
Yes.
And then got a little addicted to seeing the light bulbs turn on.
Yeah, I did.
And the confidence that blossomed. How did you transition from that into really focusing on the behavioral issues and autism and things of that nature?
Sure. So after getting out of a very challenging relationship and marriage, I found who I believe is my soulmate, Dr. Fred, and he brought a son to the marriage, and I brought a daughter. His son had significant behavioral issues. And so what ended up happening is that, at that point I had stepped into the special education realm. I was working in a classroom with children with significant behavioral needs, and I was doing emotional support 24/7 because I was doing it at home and I was doing it at school.
Yep.
And then my stepson it just got to be too much for him. He decided to drop out of high school 3 months before graduation.
And how, as an educator yourself, how did that trigger you? Because undoubtedly it triggered you 3 months before graduation, so close to the finish line.
It to the point where, okay, so he dropped out and then moved away, and we lost contact with him, okay? And it triggered me so much that within, I don't know, a month, 2 months, I was registered to take classes in more special education and more behavioral sciences, and you know, I went back. I ended up with a master's degree in special education. I went back even further for more, and I did applied behavior analysis. I went back for more, and I did a doctorate in special education and positive behavior support, because he left us and we felt like we had failed him terribly. Now, you have to keep in mind that all through us raising him and being with him, we were told by family and friends, not all family, but family and friends, that we were bad parents, that anybody could raise him better than we could, that we were doing everything wrong. We were isolated. People didn't want to be around us because he was doing stupid things and making it uncomfortable for everyone, including us.
Yeah.
You know, my daughter would come home from school and run up to her bedroom and shut her door, and she would come out for dinner and then go running back upstairs into her bedroom because she didn't want to hear the fighting that was constantly going on.
Yeah.
And so, you know, his behavior affected all of us and triggered all of us. So it took a long time for that trauma to even kind of even itself out.
And was that trauma, the reliving, the constant living in that isolation, that judgment, the tension, the fighting, the yelling, the fear, all of the things, right? Compounded by the isolation, compounded by the blame and the shame and all the things of your own family telling you, you know, that you were failing him or that you weren't good parents. Was that, any of that, a trigger from earlier life experiences for you?
For me it was, yes, because when I came from that previous marriage, my former husband told me that I was a terrible mother. And this is before we were even not together. I was not a good mother and I was doing things wrong, and that at one point he said, I'm going to take your daughter, you know, take her away and you'll be lucky to see her. And so there was, you know, that trauma that I didn't recognize until much later. I didn't put those pieces together until much later. And then it even motivated me, it pushed me more to really want to make sure to get the message out, because I never wanted anyone or a family to feel the way, not just me, but that we as a family unit, including my stepson, felt, because it was so traumatic. We were alienated. We were, at points we felt abandoned, and at other times there were people, you know, like my mom and dad and my sister and brother-in-law. They were super supportive, but not everybody else. Not the other people who should have been, or I would have thought have been, were. So how did you navigate that? Beyond using it as fuel to go and learn, how did you navigate the emotional triggers? How did you navigate through your own journey of shedding all the labels that were being thrown upon you, shedding the expectations of everyone else,
not internalizing the words, you're a bad mother, or you know, anyone else can raise him better than you. How did you navigate through that? Because you are not alone in this experience.
Well, recognizing that I was not alone. And I think that one of the greatest things was when I put myself out there and I said, you know, I reached out to people and I talked to them and I wrote books and articles and things like that. But the thing that I think most brought it home to me was when I worked one-on-one with families and I could say to them, I understand what you are going through. I may not have had the exact same experience, but I know that feeling of alienation. I know that feeling of frustration and anger. And in learning about all of the things in all of the courses that I took, the teachers that I had, these are things that I know will be helpful to you. So in implementing some of the techniques and the tools and the strategies that I studied, other parents and other families were able to navigate that successfully through that lunacy, that all of that stuff. And seeing that helped me to find the path. I could see the road.
Yeah.
And at first it wasn't clear. At first it was very, you know, foggy and windy. And then it over time it has become more clear. And I've been able to refine the things that I do in helping people.
Yeah. What a full circle moment. So teaching was really, you could see yourself in those kids, and learning to navigate your own situation, your own parenting situation, was seeing yourself in the families you were helping.
Yeah, and you know,
what
honestly,
a full circle moment.
I never thought about it that way, Ellie. I mean, that's, you know, that's quite phenomenal, profound. And I never thought about it that way.
Full circle moment. I like to say when I'm working with clients, you are most powerfully poised to serve the person you once were.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would absolutely agree with that. And those are the people that I see myself serving.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Really
now, you do a variety of things. I mean, we touched on just a few in your introduction, but who do you serve and how do you serve them?
So, okay, well, let's see. Let me start here. So, I do a lot of things. One of the things that I do is I work with parents, grandparents, caregivers, and teachers in finding ways to reach their kids, to get their behaviors under control, and doing it holistically. Now, I'm not saying, you know, we're not laying hands on, you know, we're not speaking in tongue, but it's a holistic method. It's a holistic system where.
So what is holistic, since we're clarifying, what does holistic mean to you? Are you helping the families navigate mentally, emotionally, tactically?
All of those things. So that's the thing that is super important, is that families need to understand that behavior is not an individual event. It's a family affair.
Yeah.
It affects everybody. So when I speak holistically, I'm speaking holistically a number of ways. I work with the whole family, and I work with the whole person. Okay, so we're talking socially, emotionally, academically, physically. How are all of those things tied together? And, you know, one of the first things that I do with, whether it's grandparents, foster parents, whomever, is looking at, as a unit, as a whole unit, where are you right now? How are you feeling? What do you think are causing those feelings? and are you all feeling in that same way? Or is somebody over here angry? Is somebody over here resentful? Why are all of these happening? What's going on here? And then I ask everybody to stop, and as a whole, and again as individuals, what is it that you want? What do you want to feel? What do you want to do? Who do you want to be? Okay, and those are the things that we work with. We jump on those, and we look at that again. You know, how is all of this working socially? And again, that's the emotional piece of it. And I think hitting the emotional part first.
Yeah.
Everyone can then begin to understand themselves, and they can understand each other. Now, somebody said to me one time, "Well, I can't ask a 3-year-old how they're feeling or what they want."
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. They clearly have never been a parent or have never tried to give that 3-year-old a dinner that they did not want.
Well, and that's all part of because
that child will tell you very quickly that they are not eating whatever it is that you just put down.
That is correct. And that's one of the tools is, you know, making sure you give your children the opportunity to make decisions and choices, because, wait for it, you want them to build decision-making muscles.
Yeah.
And so the earlier you start allowing them to make decisions, don't give them the keys to the car. Don't give them the bank account. Don't give them a credit card. But say to them, do you want to wear your purple pants or do you want to wear your orange pants?
Yeah.
Do you want to wear your purple top or do you want to wear your orange? Who cares if the colors clash? They've made the decision.
Yep.
Let them go with that. And so that's part of that's the beginning part of the healing process for them, for all of them. You know, you and I both like to be able to make decisions.
Yeah.
I like to be in control of a lot of things.
Yeah. I think it's really important, a couple of points that you're bringing up, not only the decision making, but I think taking that one step further. It's finding your voice. It's using your voice.
Sure.
It's expressing yourself. It's expressing boundaries. No, you're not eating that today. That may be the boundary of the 3-year-old. But these are things that are critical for children, for adults, to go on and be seen and heard and valued and step into the full embodiment of themselves and live the life that they want to live. It starts with being able to use your voice, being able to express yourself, having your boundaries, being able to make clear decisions. So, yeah.
And it goes a step further, because once they've made the decision, as a parent, it's our job to help them understand what the consequence of that decision is. So when I say the word consequence, immediately everybody goes, "That's consequences are bad." Okay, no, stop and think. Okay, it's raining outside. You put up an umbrella. You stay dry. Okay, that's a consequence. A consequence is just a result of something.
Yep.
Okay, so if your child wears orange pants and a purple slacks, the consequence is they wear orange pants and a purple blouse. Let's say. Yeah. They don't match. Oh well. Is it life-threatening? No. Okay, but it's a decision that they made, and that's a consequence that they have to live with.
Yep.
So, you know, by the time they get to be a teenager and they have the choice to drink a beer and get behind the wheel, or not drink a beer and get behind the wheel, which decision do you want them to make? You want them to be able to discern a strong and positive and, quite honestly, a right decision, because the consequences could then be life-threatening.
Yeah. So I love your point about consequences, because everything in life has a consequence.
That's correct.
Every choice we make, there is a response, a reaction, a result.
That's correct.
That happens from that decision. And we learn in life through contrast. We know what feels good because we know what feels bad. We know what feels easy because we know what feels hard. We know what feels in alignment because we know when we're in chaos.
Right.
And so you learn that through, I'm going to take this action, and what is the result that is going to happen? And do I like that result, or do I not like that result? And then that informs going forward.
You know, there's another point to that too, and that is that our kids see and hear everything we say and do. So as parents, the way we model that, we model how we model making a decision or a choice, and how we model the consequence of that is super important. And I think one thing that, you know, a lot of parents, they're afraid to do the wrong thing in front of their kids. You know what? If you're wrong, you're wrong. Own it. Let your kids see that.
Yeah.
Because then when they do something wrong, they can own it.
Yeah, the accountability, taking the responsibility.
Yeah, it's okay to be wrong, but how you respond to that has consequences, you know, far-reaching as a parent, because your kids are watching that.
Yeah.
So don't be that parent that goes out onto the Little League baseball field and, you know, knocks the snot out of the umpire.
Yeah.
Be the parent who says to your child after the game, I didn't agree with that call, but he or she is the umpire, and that's their decision.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I love that you are giving us these actionable tools, these implementable action steps that parents can be mindful of. And there's a lot of parents who are navigating children with behavioral issues. That has been exacerbated throughout the pandemic. That has been exacerbated through the isolation, kids not being in school, them not having an outlet, them not learning the social skills, the interaction. You know, interacting in real life is different, obviously, than just interacting on Zoom or on your phone or on Instagram.
Sure.
And so there has definitely been an uptick in the effects on children. So what you're doing is needed now more than ever. So you talked a little bit about some of the programs and services that you have with treating the family holistically. How else do you serve?
So when the pandemic started,
ages ago, eons, back in the dark ages.
Yeah, when was that? It was literally probably, I don't know, not even a week after the pandemic started. I kept thinking, what is it that I can do right now that I can do from my chair and whatever. And you know, the teacher in me was just like bursting. And so I decided that I was going to, at that time it was called Bedtime Books with Dr. Teri Rouse. And so every night I would get on, every night at 7:30 I would get on with a book that I had from my shelf, and I would just read a book to everybody on Facebook Live. And that continued until, from the beginning of the pandemic, probably until August, when I realized, after how many months, March, April, May, June, July, August, about 6 months of reading every single night, that I was absolutely exhausted, and I couldn't do it every night. So Snuggle Bunny Storytime was then born. And Snuggle Bunny Storytime continues, and I just choose a book, and I bring my trusty co-pilot, Gus the big brown dog, and he sits with me, and we read a book to whomever is out there listening on Facebook Live. And it's, you know, sometimes once a week or so. And actually, I'm starting to pick that back up again because I've had people say to me, well, where's Gus? And when's Snuggle Bunny coming back?
That's amazing. So you know, what positive reinforcement, what incredible validation that what you're doing has impact. Now, hidden in there was a golden nugget that I want to go back to. So you mentioned that after 6 months of reading every day, you were just exhausted and drained and couldn't do it anymore. So let's talk about burnout. And let's talk about ways, you know, I think all of us have experienced burnout and pandemic fatigue. You serve a population that lives in burnout 24/7, even pre-pandemic.
Right.
Right? That living on high alert, the emotional
roller coaster.
Yeah, it's a lot. And
Yeah.
so let's talk a little bit about how you navigate burnout, not only in your own life and your own day-to-day routine, but in ways that the audience can, particularly, you know, parents, grandparents, what can they do to avoid the burnout?
So I'll speak a little bit about what I do personally first, and then I'll bring it into parents, grandparents, and caregivers. So I am a huge proponent of journaling, and I highly recommend that to everybody of all ages. I mean, a journal, even your 3 and 4-year-olds can journal. Give them a book and just let them color, draw 5-10 minutes a day. But I am a huge proponent of journaling. The other part is the quiet meditation. Now, meditation does, for me anyway, does not mean that I'm sitting in the lotus position. That doesn't work for me. But it means that I'm sitting in quiet. And I may have music on, and I may not. And I may be looking out the window, and I may not. It just depends what I feel I need to do to just settle myself, just for even a few minutes. Now, I will tell you that when the kids were home, I would put myself in the bathroom and just sit down on the floor in the bathroom just for 10 minutes of quiet time. And you all can do that too, okay? And it's important for people to take even 10 minutes just to recharge. And your kids can do it too.
Family timeout. Everyone,
Family timeout. Yep.
Everyone goes to their corners. Everyone is taking 5 minutes or 10 minutes of self-care, whether that's a dance party in their living room.
That's the other thing you can do.
You know, or a quiet time, or journaling, or going outside and shooting some basketballs.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things about the burnout is that we all feel burnout individually, but again, it influences everybody. And if we can take even that 10 minutes of just being together, go out into the backyard, go for a walk around the block, sit in the living room and
with no phones.
With no phones, no electronics, no phone. Just sit in the living room and play a card game, have a conversation. You know, one of the things that in fact, it was one of the parents I was working with. She used to ask her kids, "How was your day at school?" And they would say it was fine. And she would be like, it was like pulling teeth to get any information. And so finally what she did, even throughout the pandemic, was she said, "What was the best part of your day today?"
Yep.
So they actually had to stop and think about that, and then conversation just kind of flowed with that.
Yeah.
So I thought that was brilliant, and it was, you know, I've adopted that.
Yeah.
You know, I learned too from my parent friends here.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, when you ask better questions, you get better answers.
Absolutely.
And there's a strategy of asking for the pit and the peak. So it's very similar in what was the best thing that happened that day and what was the low point.
Okay.
And with the pit and the peak, it allows you, and it's pit and peak, not peak and pit.
Right.
So you start with the valley, and then that really allows them to express their emotions, to process whatever happened, and for the family to support or crowdsource, you know, problem solve, and then bring it right up to the peak. What was the best thing of the day?
Now, the other thing that is super important too is, you know, we all have these routines and schedules, and we've got to do this, and you know, routine's super important. You should have a routine. But we expect our kids to, as an example in school, they go to school, they sit at their desk, they do their work, they do this, they do that, they do all of these things that are their, what some people call the must-do list. And I've called it the must-do. They must be done, okay? Or the have-to-dos.
Yeah.
And as an adult, yeah, I have things on my list that I need to get finished, but I also have things that I want to do.
Yeah.
So when I do something that I must do or should do or need to do, I will also give myself the grace to do something that I want to do.
Yeah.
And we have to do the same thing for our kids. And when you sit down, first of all, when you model that, and then when you sit down with your kids and say to them, okay, these are things that we have to get finished today because they're really important. You have to get your lunch made. You have to go to school. You have to go to the doctor, whatever the case may be. But when we get these 3 things finished, then we're going to do one of these things that you've chosen that you want to do. Because if we only have them doing things because they have to, we're going to come up with these little robots, and we're going to come up with, talk about burnout.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? And that's one
And no
way.
joy in life.
And no joy.
Yeah.
And no joy. And you know, modeling taking care of yourself as an adult, when our kids see us taking care of ourselves, when they see us eating right, when they see us sleeping right, when they see us brushing our teeth, you know, that when they see us doing all of these things, then it becomes easier for them to do that too.
Yeah.
And we want that.
Yeah. Yeah. When I can imagine some parents out in the audience going, well, but if they're saying no to me, if they're not doing the things they need to do, if they're being headstrong, if they're being difficult, you know, then I'm already tired and overwhelmed and I don't want to deal with that. And to your point earlier, giving them the ability to make choices and see the consequences, allowing them to find their voice and express themselves, yes, it can lead to some difficult moments. You know, modeling the ability to say no, modeling healthy boundaries, modeling clear communication. Well, that can also lead to them saying no and them holding their boundaries. And, you know, so how do you show yourself grace, number one, and how do you develop the patience to navigate that when they're actually doing exactly what you want them to do? It's just challenging.
So, first of all, there are times when, you know, like I say, give them choice and allow them to make decisions, right? And there's a question that people ask all of the time, and it is, would you, whatever, okay? Now, here's the thing. If it's okay for them to say no, then ask them, would you take out the garbage? Would you make your bed? If it's not okay, you need to say to the kids, please make your bed. Don't be like the drill sergeant, make your bed. Please make your bed. You have 10 minutes. When that 10 minutes is over and your bed is made, we're going to go and do this, or you can have this, or then it will be time for this, whatever that might be. When they're being headstrong, you can be headstrong, but until you do this, we can't do that. And, you know, sometimes kids will dig their heels in. I know my daughter did. I know my stepson did. Okay, then we don't get to do these things. It's not a consequence to me. It's a consequence to you. The only time it's a consequence is if you're not ready for school, you're going like you are.
Yeah.
You know, and that happened with my stepson once. He went in his pajamas and, you know, we turned around and went back and he got himself together. But the point is he didn't think that was going to be.
Yeah.
Now, super important for parents is that once you say something, you have to stick to that. You can't go willy-nilly. You can't go back and forth. You can't.
Clear expectations,
Absolutely.
Communicating boundaries, clear expectations, and then follow through.
That's correct.
And that's so important because that's life.
Mm-hmm.
If you say you're going to do something,
Right.
you follow through on it.
Right.
If someone else tells you they're going to do something, you expect them to follow through on it. And there's consequences if they don't.
That's right. Now, the other thing with that is, too, is when they do something that you want them to do, okay, and you know, there are a lot of people who will disagree with me, but I will stand by, I'll fall on my sword with this, is that when you provide positive attention to kids, to children, to each other, to as adults, okay, we all like that. I like to hear, Teri, you did a great job with. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when you're when your kids are maybe pushing back about not doing something, when they do it, thank you for picking up all of the clothes off of the floor and putting them in the hamper. That was great. I appreciate that. Because that's a behavior that you want them to do again and again and again.
So reinforcing the behaviors
Absolutely.
that you want with acknowledgement and praise and gratitude.
Yes.
So gratitude is key.
Absolutely.
And I touched on it a little bit earlier with showing yourself grace.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think that's really hard. I know it was hard for me to show myself grace. I expected myself to always be the perfect mother, the perfect wife, the perfect teacher, the perfect. And I think that when you embrace and recognize that you are perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
I say that all the time now. I didn't years ago. I did not. But it's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to have a curl out of place. It's okay to have, you know, the dirty towels on the floor. It's okay that your house is not spotless. It's okay. And it's not going to make or break the world. Your kids are not going to be any worse off if you give yourself and give your kids, your children, your family some grace.
Yeah.
Always.
We're on this journey of life, right?
Yeah, and it's always moving.
It's
always
moving,
changing.
and it's our job to grow and learn and evolve and
Right.
and blossom, and that the beauty is in the journey, in those moments, and learning to give ourselves grace, to be patient, is not always easy.
No.
So what is an actionable tip that you can give to help people stop beating themselves up, stop internalizing when the external, when family or friends or the community says you're a bad parent, or you know, someone else could do a better job, and then you start beating yourself up? How do you stop the madness?
Stop the madness. Well, okay, so it's not an easy thing to do. It really isn't, because it is so ingrained. But I think the one thing that has worked for me is to really take that step back away from whatever is going on. To take a step away from those people. It's okay to not want to be around people who, and I don't care if they're family or not. It's okay for you to say, you know, I can't be, I don't want to be, and you don't even have to say anything. You can just step away. Yeah. But I think the greatest thing is to bring your immediate circle, your kids, your spouse, your partner, whatever, together, and to find that one thing that you as a unit can do and just be at peace. And for me and for, you know, Dr. Fred and for our daughter, a lot of times that was just standing out in the backyard and watching the dogs run around like crazies. For some people, it is totally separating from everyone, and that's okay too, even for just a little while. I think that's so individual, but the most important thing to know is that it's okay, that you are not a bad parent, that you are doing the best that you can do. Let me repeat that. You're doing the best that you can do right now with who you are and who everyone else in your family is. And so own that and embrace that, because you are right where you're supposed to be at this moment.
Yeah. I mean, the realization that you can only do what you can do in that moment with what you have.
That's right.
And what you know and where you are in your journey. So I think so often we look back and I could have done this, I should have done this, and we could have, should have, could have, should have ourselves to death.
Right.
When in that moment, you did the best you could with what you knew and what you had in that moment.
And I'm going to go back to talking about my stepson. You know, I was raised I was truly blessed. My mom and dad, my dad has since passed, but my mom and dad were and are fantastic parents, okay? And there were a lot of things that they did that they probably thought was not right, you know, at the time. You know,
they doubted themselves.
And, of course, like we all do. Okay, and so I look back at my childhood, like I can close my eyes and I can think about the time I was sitting underneath of a tree and a thunderstorm came along and my mother came to the park and gathered us all together and brought us home. I can think about the time that we were really bad and we went into our neighbor's shed and we got, I don't know what it was, lime or something, and we were playing with it. And my father came out and we were all covered with this and he hauled us home. You know, and yeah, I remember, and I remember those things fondly. You know, they were not, you know, happy experiences at the time, but I can remember them fondly now.
Yeah.
Because my mom and dad were parents.
Yeah.
You know, and I doubted so many things that I did.
Yeah.
And then when I went back to school and I learned all of these things, I thought to myself, gee, I could have done those things back then. So even when I went back to school and I was getting all of this information, I was being bombarded with all of this knowledge and all the tools and everything, I questioned.
Yeah.
Okay, and I did a lot of I should have.
Yeah.
But then I did take that step back and it was like I did what I knew how to do.
Yep. That's all you can do. You do what you know how to do in that moment. When you get different tools and resources, when you learn more, you can do more.
Right.
You make the best decisions that you can in the moment. And when you have different information, you can make a different decision. So I think that's really important for people to give themselves the grace and to know that you're doing the best you can in every moment with what you have at your disposal. And when you know more or you know different, you do different.
Right.
Or you can do different.
You can.
So let's talk about how to silence the self-doubt, how to silence the inner critic, the limiting beliefs, all of the things. I mean, we've talked about it, the things that inherently come up. Mm-hmm. The doubt, the fear, the questioning and the judgment, we've touched on the fact that the path to grace is so individual. But what's something someone can do, a process they can take themselves through to rethink or reframe or get a different perspective, or navigate those limiting beliefs and the criticism that comes up so that they can go forward and make decisions clearly?
So I've done a lot of different things, okay? And I think the one thing that, or not the one thing, the one process of reframing is, for me, is, well, two things. First of all, thinking about what is it that I want it to look like. So, as an example, when I was coming out of school, okay, and I had all this stuff, and I still had all these doubts about what was happening or what had happened and what continued to happen with my stepson. What did I want the outcome to be? Okay, so here's this crap over here, and here's the golden chalice
vision,
or whatever
yes.
over here. And so how do I get from here to here? And taking what I knew or what I know to reframe. What were the steps I was going to do? What was I going to do to get from here to there? And I do that every day. You know, like I will wake up sometimes and think, oh geez, do I really want to do this? I have all this stuff to do. And then I have to go, wait a minute. It's not that I have to do. I get to do.
Yeah.
Okay? So I get to get up in the morning. Somebody didn't get up this morning. I did. Okay, and I get to go in my car, and I get to go to the grocery store, and I get to choose whatever I want to choose. And if you can take that mindset, if you can take that I get to do, or I get to see, or I get to be, that changes the whole thing. It changes the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Both of those are so powerful, and anyone can do it.
Yeah.
So you can ask yourself, what would I love, or what is the outcome that I desire? How would I want this to look? How would I want this to be? And then once, it's like the GPS. So you know where you are, you know what the situation is right now, you know that you don't like it.
Right.
Once you're clear on what would I love, what would I desire, how would I want this situation to be, then to your point, I'm here, I want to go there, how can I get there?
Well, the road gets clear, and that's what happened even, I said that before, remember the pathway was, it was almost like a lightning bolt in some respects, because like I had this thing over here, I kept thinking this is what I want, and then when I could clearly envision it, the road opened up, the highway was clear, there wasn't a truck or anything on it, and I was on my way.
Yeah. Clarity is key. So I love asking yourself, what do you want? How do you want it to be? And then I love the reframe, the perspective of I get to. I think all of us can do that. And that's something particularly parents and grandparents and caregivers who are really wrestling with the obligations, the responsibilities that they're shouldering, their own emotions, the family emotions, the emotions of their child or their children. So being able to reframe, I get to help him navigate. I get to take this moment for myself in the bathroom. I get to say no. I get to carve out 5 moments with my spouse. I get to course correct. I get to instill in my child a way to be more peaceful or more calm.
I get to say yes.
I get to
say yes to my children, and I get to say yes to me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's, yes, it's so important, right? I get to say yes. I get to choose the things that I want to do, and I get to choose how I want to react, and I get to choose the decisions I get to make. So what is something that, we talked a lot about making decisions. How do you help children and families become more peaceful, more calm, more present?
So I do a lot of work with teaching people, teaching parents, grandparents, caregivers, and children, what positive talk is, what positive attention is, how to use that in a meaningful way, how to praise your child without being effusive or overdoing it. I work with parents in getting past the roadblock of, you want me to give my kids a choice and you want me to allow them to make decisions. That is super uncomfortable. And I help them to become comfortable in allowing that to happen.
Yeah.
And I also work, again, the consequence piece of it is really key, because no matter what decision or choice parents allow their children to have, there's also a consequence for the parents.
Yes.
So how to navigate and be comfortable with allowing your kid, let them make a mistake, let them get someplace uncomfortable. So I want people to be uncomfortable to get comfortable.
Yeah.
And then the final, in the initial program that I work with, is flexibility and modeling that self-care. So having a flexible routine, but still having a routine, having and incorporating self-care and encouraging and showing parents that it's okay to respond. Quite honestly, any way a parent responds is okay, because again, it's at that moment. Now, what you do with that response is, or how you own that response, is what is more important.
Yeah.
So let me give you an example. We have a parent who is, I use the ball field a lot because I've seen all kinds of things on the ball field. So there's a parent who gets into the face of the umpire, and they're thrown out of the game. They're told they can't go. And that parent wants to go back at the umpire, right? But they don't. They take a step back, they walk away, and okay. Now, two things happened there. They made a mistake in getting in the umpire's face, but they owned it.
Yeah.
Okay. Second of all, they wanted to get into that umpire's face even further, but they didn't. They walked away. Okay. So after the game, that parent has the perfect opportunity, the perfect teachable moment to say to, not only to their kids, but to the team and to other parents that are there, you know what, I really screwed that up. I should never, I disagreed, I lost my cool, it was wrong of me to do that. It was right for the umpire to throw me out. Okay? I really wanted to go back at that umpire, but I didn't, because it wouldn't have been the right thing for me to do. And I want you to see that I'm owning this. I made a mistake, I realized it, I stepped back, and you know what? It's not going to change the outcome of the game, but it changed the way I will respond the next time an umpire makes a call that I don't like. And I want you to learn from that.
So powerful. Great example. And we can do that in any situation.
Absolutely.
We can do that with the way that we respond to an email. We can do that with the way that we respond to our friends or a spouse or in conversation or our children. So that's a great example of how we can take accountability and then communicate that in a way to model and be that example. So I love that. Yeah. Now, let's imagine, because we've talked about the ways that you serve and being an example. Let's imagine that we've come to the end of your life best lived. And you have been an example, you have modeled, and you have served every day. What do they say about you?
They say that Dr. Teri served to her very best ability to ensure that every family, moms, dads, grandparents, siblings, children, everyone, knew that they were important and that they had the tools to make lifelong decisions, that they could live the best that they could be, and that they too could then pass those things along so that no one ever felt the isolation and the anger and the frustration that maybe we all once felt, but she didn't want us to ever feel that. And so she showed us the path to get from that to living our best lives, just like she lived her best life.
So how can people get in contact with you? How can they learn more about your programs and your services?
Sure. So the easiest way to find out more about me is to check out my website. It is drterirouse.com. You can also email me at drterirousefearless@gmail.com. And you can also see me on Facebook, and I'm just Dr. Teri Rouse there. So those are the three easiest ways to get in touch with me.
Amazing. Get in touch with this woman. She's phenomenal. So as we wrap up here today, any parting words for our audience? Anything you'd like to share?
Yes, there is. I want every one of you to know out there that, first of all, you are worthy. That you are worthy of the relationships that you want. You are worthy to be empowered as individuals and as a family. You are worthy of success, and you are certainly worthy of living the life that you desire. And so I want you to go forward feistily, fiercely, and fearlessly, and get that life.
Amazing. Dr. Teri, thank you so much for being here today. It has been an honor and a pleasure. And I thank you for the work that you do in the world, how you show up in the world, the lives that you're changing, not only with the children, but with the parents, the grandparents, and the caregivers. The ripple effect is profound.
I can't thank you enough for giving me this opportunity to get my message out there.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Till next time.